The world has turned once more on its economic axis. Donald Trump, the propaganda, the mad, the prodigal tariff wielder, has returned to his favourite global pastime, slapping levies on allies like an irate auctioneer in a crowded room. And this time the United Kingdom finds itself on the wrong side of the ledger, with new US import tariffs ranging from 10% on most goods to a punitively specific 25% on steel, aluminium, and cars, all delayed for 90 days. In response, belatedly, some would argue, Rachel Reeves has finally unlatched the Treasurer's purse strings. On Sunday, she announced a £20 billion expansion of the UK Export Finance, the UKEF, raising its total capacity to £80 billion. Up to 10 billion of that sum is ring-fenced to support firms impacted in the short term by Trump's economic mood swings. This initiative includes loan guarantees and direct lending, a boost to British Business Bank's loan guarantee scheme by £500 million, specific help for SMEs with loans of up to £2 million to keep them afloat amid disrupted supply chains and shrinking US demand. Put simply, the government is throwing ballast under a listing ship, but the question remains, why did we wait until the tide was well and truly out before reaching for the oars? The announcement is undeniably good news for exporters, but it's equally an admission of a failure to act swiftly. Conservative critics, never shy of a stiletto in the ribs, have claimed Reeves dithered and delayed, which she did, scrapping the previous government's negotiator with Washington and leaving British firms exposed. Andrew Griffith, the shadow business secretary, went further, citing the damage of Labour's so-called jobs tax and over-regulation. You'd be forgiven for thinking he was writing a manifesto rather than responding to economic peril. And to some extent, he has a point. British businesses, particularly in the Midlands and the North, had already begun pivoting away from the US market weeks before Reeves' intervention, hemorrhaging contracts in sectors like car parts, metals, and food processing. The broader context is not merely bilateral grumbling. This is a new era in global trade. The rules-based system is frayed, and the big players are leaning into transactionalism. Trump's tariffs are not just economic instruments, they're political props, and the 10% blanket tariff is described by one of his aides as the baseline, a floor, not a ceiling. Exceptions are rare and symbolic, as we saw when smartphones were spared the lash because of Silicon Valley lobbying. In this context, Reeves' plan is more sandbags than solution, necessary but not visionary. Her upcoming trip to Washington for the IMF spring meetings is a chance to argue for free and fair trade, but Washington may be less interested in fairness and more in leverage. To her credit, Reeves has chosen not to return fire with economic nationalism. Instead, she leans into Labour's internationalist credentials. Her Observer column last Sunday called for a more balanced global trading system, a noble sentiment if short on specifics. She's also avoided the trap of populist gestures. There'll be no Buy British campaign, no retaliatory tariffs, no slogans etched in red, white and blue. What we have instead is a targeted resilience, finance, insurance and a backstop for firms who may otherwise collapse before any deal is struck with the White House. This could be a moment of strategic opportunity. If Britain can redirect some of this support to expand trade with Canada, India, the EU, we may find that Trump's tariffs, while bruising, could catalyse a long overdue diversification of export strategy. So what are we left with? A chancellor playing catch-up, president playing poker, and British businesses playing defence. Rachel Reeves' package will help certainly, but it shouldn't be taken as evidence that she's doing anything of value. She shouldn't have taken this long to do what little she is doing. In the world of global trade, the early bird gets the deal, and Britain is starting to look more like the hedgehog crossing the motorway. But better late than never, I suppose. Next time, let's not wait for the Trump tantrum to remember who needs the backing most. Those creating jobs, making things, and selling Britain to the world. We shouldn't be simply reacting to Trump's noises.